Hi, my name's Brendon Watt, and welcome to the One Choice from Change podcast, where I give you the tools to create something totally different beyond the status quo, and where you get to become as different as you are. What if there is nothing wrong with any of the choices you've made up until now? I'm inviting you to be aware that every choice creates something. So, what would you choose today? Hi everyone, I am Brendon Watt. Welcome forward to the next episode of One Choice from Change podcast. So hopefully that last one was a contribution, and I want to on this journey, this little journey of consciousness of ours that we go on, and I say that because you'd be like, am I on that journey? Am I going on that path? Well, are you one of those people in the world that's always seeking something different? Even if you don't know you are, but even as a kid, I know for me as the little kid, it was always like, oh, everything was about wonder. Everything was about like, what is out there? What else is possible? Like, how can I contribute to this? What can I be with this? What do I want to be? Like, everything was about question and wonder and possibilities. And for me, that really changed when I started school. And I've told this story many times of being in grade one at school and being so sensitive. For me, I've been sensitive my whole life, and I don't really think I've talked about this part much, but I talk about this story of being this little kid, this 5 or 6-year-old little kid, and being at school and sitting under a tree one day crying. I always used to cry at school, and I was sitting there thinking, I don't remember a day that's gone by where I haven't cried. And I'm also looking around going, I don't have any friends. Nobody likes me. Nobody wants to interact or engage with me because I'm this sensitive kid. And so I went, if I'm going to fit in this world, this needs to change. And I began to eliminate that sensitivity, or thought I did. I began to eliminate what I thought created it, which was the judgments that I was already beginning to have of myself. And so I look at that now, and I say it didn't work because I don't have many days that don't go by where I don't just want to cry at something, not from sadness, but from many different things of this sensitivity that I've had and have available in my world. And I see for a lot of us that we do a sensitivity to everything that's going on around us. One of the things that we do is we think that we're just us, and our connection is based on the relationships that we have, not how big we actually are as beings and how aware we are of everything that's going on in the world. Well, one of the things that I did was I made that sensitivity an incredible wrongness. And what I realized is that in beginning to, and I say this because another thing with this journey of consciousness, another thing with it never shows up the way you think it's going to, is like I mentioned before, is there's a possibility in everything. Well, if you're one of those people and you have that sensitivity and you have that awareness, you're like, wow, how did I just go from happy to angry? Or how did I just go from happy to sad? How did I just go from like thinking about this person and then I want to save them, all these different things? Well, what if you have a lot more awareness than you've ever given yourself credit for? And what if you actually had a sensitivity to possibilities that could be embraced if you're willing to get out of the judgment of you? So hopefully we can go on that path, and hopefully that could begin to be a target, is in this podcast getting different awarenesses for yourself. And rather than trying to go to this thing of figuring out, well, how do I get there? How do I get out of judgment of me? Well, that's not really going to help as a question, because that's already trying to determine where you're wrong with that. So what if we looked at it a different way? And what if whatever sparks for you in these conversations is just as simple as, wow, you know what? I'm having that. What do I need to be? Universe, consciousness. What do I need to be? What do I need to choose? What do I need to do, have, create, generate in order to have that? And in order to be that, and start asking for these things. And then let's keep going through the conversation, because that's the other thing is we've been so indoctrinated into thinking that we need to find the answer. We need to find the solution. We need to find the source for the problem in order to eliminate the problem, rather than recognize that the problem only exists in our lives. Any problem only exists in our lives because we keep choosing the limitation that creates that problem. So rather than that, if we start moving in a different direction, and hopefully just allowing these things to open up different spaces in your world, but rather than that, we begin to move through our days with this sensitivity. And I call it sensitivity because I call it sensitivity. But this sensitivity to awareness that you have is, rather than excluding it and putting it in the too hard basket anymore and going, I must avoid that. I must avoid that. I have too much judgment of that. I have too much wrongness of that. All of these different things, I must avoid, must avoid, must avoid, is, rather than that, embracing everything and allowing yourself to have the awareness of the things in your life that you choose that are stopping you, to be present with them. Okay, what's it going to take to change this now? What's it going to take for me to have a lot less judgment of myself? What's it going to take for me to have a lot more ease with this area? Universe. And I'm just going to give these questions now, because these are what I use. If you're having difficulty in a relationship with somebody, what are the infinite possibilities with this person that I've never asked for? Notice the difference with that to, how do I get them to see my point of view, and how do I get them to see that I'm right and they're wrong, and how do I control them? How do I own them? How do I make this work the way I want it to work? Notice that you're going down one path and that's the only path you're on. Stop there and go, okay, so what are the infinite possibilities here that I haven't even asked for? And so let me lead into this with 12 years ago, when I'd gotten to a point in my life, I'd been doing exactly what I'm talking about right now. And I'm not talking about the space of possibilities. I'm not talking about questions. I'm talking about, how do I eliminate everything that I am in order to fit in to a world I have no idea how to fit into? And in doing this and ticking the boxes over the years, what I did was, in growing up, it was about, in order to be anything in this world, it's not even anything in this world. Basically, it was more, in order to fit in, you need to get a job, which I did. I became a tradesman as soon as I left school. You need to get a relationship, which I did. I got a relationship. I got into a long-term relationship when I was 19. Tick that box. You'll have kids. By the time I was 24, I was a father. Tick that box. You get a house, you did all of these different things. You drink. I talked about in the previous show. I did a lot too much of that. But also it was my way of escaping this, which I'd already decided was myself, the life that I decided I need to live, that didn't include me. How much of our energy goes into creating the life that we've decided we need to live that doesn't include anything that's true for us. So I'd gotten to this point 12 years ago where it had hit a pinnacle of depression in my life. My life had become basically a monologue of all of these reels and parts and pieces that I'd taken from everybody else's lives and stacked them together to build this life of mine that had nothing to do with me. When you do that, and it's like, I'm sure I'm not the only one with this, but it's like, well, you look successful with that, you look successful with that, you look, and we take all of these parts and pieces that match something that we've decided we need, and it's usually what we've decided we need, what we've decided we lack, and we start ramming all of these different things together in order to create this thing that we can call our lives, that doesn't include us, doesn't include you. in that computation. So excuse me, I'd gotten to this point for me 12 years ago where I had had enough. And at that point, I was unhappy with everything. You know, I was waking up in the morning and I was sharing a bedroom with my 4-year-old son at the time at my mother's house. And I'd wake up in the morning and this little kid would be like, "Dad, what are we doing today?" And I'd be like, "Can I just go back to bed and be depressed?" And he'd be like, "Dad, what are we doing today? What are we doing today?" And one of the things I realized in these moments was, because at that point I was basically looking for a way out, was, how am I ever going to show this kid that there's something different available if I'm not willing to be something different? And one day I just got to this point and I went, okay, universe, whatever is out there, conscious, I didn't even know what I was asking for or who I was asking it from. I said, I need help. The next day, I found this tiny little ad in the newspaper that said, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory, call Mel. It was the next day. It was that day that I found Access Consciousness and something called the Access Bars. And I went and got a session with this girl. I called her first and she said, look, I'll do this session. At worst case, it'll feel like you've had a great massage. At best case, your whole life will change. And I was like, okay, what have I got to lose? Right. So I went to get this session and I laid down on this table, this massage table, not like a picnic table or a dinner table, a massage table. And apparently we say massage weird with this whole Australian accent thing, but there you go, a massage table. I laid down on this girl's table and she said, okay, so it's 32 points on the head. She told me all about it. And you can Google this. It's called Access Consciousness Bars. Phenomenal. Greatest gift in my life. Saved my life, which I'm about to talk to you about. But so she said, okay, so can I ask you some questions also while we're doing this session and say this crazy bunch of words, which is the Access Consciousness clearing statement? And I basically went, you can do whatever right now because I'm begging for help. And she put her hands on my head and she started just asking me questions like, okay, so like, what's up? And as soon as she asked me the first question and put her hands on my head, I lost it. I started sobbing for the whole session, an hour and a half this was, and I did not stop. She finished, she was asking me questions, and I want to put this tool in there as well, because the Access Consciousness clearing statement, another one of the greatest gifts of my life. And basically what it's designed to do is you ask a question, you bring up the energy, and you bring up the limitation, creating the wall that we've decided is the limitation that we cannot change, and begins to dissolve that wall. Well, the Access Consciousness clearing statement is right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all nine, shorts, boys, povads, and beyond. And if you'd like an explanation of that, if you haven't heard it before, which I know a lot of you have, you can find that at theclearingstatement.com. So anyway, after this, and I'm probably going to use it more in these podcasts a lot because it's awesome. There you go. So after this session, right, she finished this session and I went and sat, going from this depressed asshole, right, this guy that just didn't see anything possible an hour and a half ago. I went and sat in my car and didn't start it. Just sat there, excuse me. Didn't start it, just sat there, and I was like, what just happened? And it was the first sense of space I'd had since being that little kid. Since being that little kid before I wanted to give up on me in order to create the sameness as myself so that I could fit in. And I just sat there and went, what just happened? And so I started on this journey. That was the beginning for me of knowing that it wasn't about how I was going to figure my life out. It wasn't about how I was going to find the answers, how I was going to eliminate more of me in order to fit. It was about how I could receive and be the difference that I am. And it was the difference, and it is the difference that I am, that was going to create the ease in everything showing up in my life, the joy that can exist in everything in my life, the glory, which is the exuberant expression and abundance of everything that could be there in my life. And I tell this because that day changed my world forever. And I will forever be grateful for that session. And once again, it never shows up the way you think it's going to. I've talked about my thing with, I've talked about the thing with alcohol and addiction a little bit and stuff with that. Well, it's even that, it's made this, here's the way out of it. But what if it didn't have to be that way either? What if everything that you've ever made real and true about you could be looked at it from a different point of view, and could be more from this space of question with what's actually true for you? So I did this session, and then I began doing access consciousness classes, and I did an access bars class, I did a foundation class, I did a choice of possibilities class, and I did a 7-day event in 2 weeks. So I'd gone from this guy who saw nothing else as possible to, wow, this is different. And everyone was saying to me, why do you need that weird stuff? Why don't you just be happy with what you've got? And I knew that I couldn't do it anymore. I knew that I had to keep seeking that which was me. And I'm going to continue this in the next show, but this, what if it was, see, because we look at that thing of like going on this journey of being you and discovering everything about you, like all of it, but doing it from this thing of no wrongness. So it includes everything. It's not, see, what I did my whole life was, let me expose the things that I think are right about me, that I think people won't judge about me, which were all judgments anyway. Let me expose those, but let me also hide all of the things that I've made wrong about myself, which once again, and now I'm discovering, is where so much of the beauty of me is, so much of the beauty of you is. And what if it didn't have to be that way anymore? What if it could look completely different in this and on this journey? So I say again, excuse me, why is it when you just go to do a podcast, you get a serious itch in your throat? What is going on with that? You are not wrong. I say that. You are not wrong. But where was I? Train just left the station. Anyway, so with this is, I want to go into, on the next show, the different things that showed up basically on this journey, and the different tools and different ways of getting out of things and seeing things. So hopefully, once again, this has been a contribution to you. I will see you soon. Thank you. If you found this helpful, please share it and subscribe at onechoicefromchange.com. Until next time, you're only one choice from change.